On World Parkinson's Day in April 2023, Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton disclosed that she had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. In doing so, she said, "I want to bring about as much good from this diagnosis as I can." Unfortunately, that diagnosis was wrong. 5 months later, she again came forward and said that her diagnosis had been changed to progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP, in her words, a kind of Parkinson's on steroids. While PSP has robbed some of her mobility and some of her speech, it's revealed her character and strengthened her convictions. On December 14, 2023, the U.S. House of Representatives, led by Jennifer Wexton, voted 407-9 to pass the Dr. Emmanuel Bilirakis and Honorable Jennifer Wexton National Plan to End Parkinson's Act. The bill, when passed by the Senate and signed by the President, will require the federal government for the first time to develop a plan to prevent and end this debilitating disease. As she will tell you momentarily, Congresswoman Wexton, a former prosecutor, a former judge, and a mother of two, is far from done. Please join me in welcoming a relentless advocate, an amazing person, and a public servant of the highest order, Congresswoman Wexton.
Hello and good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here among so many amazing experts and advocates for better brain health. As you may know, last year I was diagnosed with progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP. It's basically Parkinson's on steroids, and I don't recommend it. It's affected my ability to speak, so I'm using this text-to-speech app to make it easier for you to hear and understand me. At the beginning of a speech like this, I would normally take time to explain how PSP has impacted my health and my day-to-day life. But in a crowd like this, you probably know all of that even better than I do myself. I appreciate the invitation to be here today to share a bit about my journey with PSP, my commitment to using the platform I have for good, what we can do to better diagnose, treat, and ultimately cure diseases like mine, and what we all must do to limit exposure to substances that are associated with these diseases to prevent people from getting sick in the first place. I was going through some photos on my phone 6 months ago, in December 2023, when I came across a picture of an albino squirrel that lives in a pin oak tree on the National Mall. I had taken the photo nearly a year ago, on June 15, 2023 at 6:13 a.m. I remember when I took it very well. My sister had met me at my apartment at 3rd and C Streets, Northeast about 20 minutes before, and we had briskly walked, then jogged, then run the approximately half-mile to the backside of the National Gallery of Art at 7th and Madison Streets, Northwest. I remember it well because, although I had been diagnosed with Parkinson's more than a year prior, my symptoms were progressing faster than those of the other women in my online support group. I was deeply concerned that there was something more than PD going on, but I had had an MRI performed in December 2022, when my neurologist at the time was concerned that I was suffering from multisystem atrophy, MSA. The radiologist read the MRI as not indicating MSA, and my neurologist advised me to stay the course, and added yet another medication to my regimen. Only levodopa made a difference in my symptoms. Whatever was making me sick, I was determined to defy it through exercise, hence the early morning interval training routine. About a week prior to my early morning workout and squirrel sighting, I met a very tall neurologist who was dedicated to eradicating Parkinson's disease. At this time, although I was still walking unassisted to and around the House floor to take votes, give speeches, and chat with my colleagues, my PSP had already begun to take its toll on me. Despite my having completed the LVST Loud program, I had to strain to be heard and understood. Although I had never been graceful, I found myself tripping and falling, or almost falling, with shocking frequency. One especially bad spill while walking the dog in July 2022 necessitated a trip to the ER, a course of powerful antibiotics and 8 stitches. I am eternally grateful to my husband Andrew for overruling my objections and assurances that it was just a scratch, and taking me to the ER, where I saw what appeared to be bones sticking out of a gaping hole in my left elbow. During my first meeting with the tall neurologist, he became very concerned. He started peppering me with rapid-fire questions about my condition, my symptoms, and my diagnosis. As his inquiries became more personal, he asked if I would agree to have him conduct a brief examination. I said yes, and he abruptly ordered everyone else to leave the room. For those of you who are not familiar with how most congressional offices operate, staff would sooner fly to the moon than leave their member alone in their office with a stranger. When Amelia, my healthcare LA, left my office, she reported to Abby, my chief of staff, the strange interaction she had just observed. But the tall neurologist, now singularly focused on his new patient, was completely oblivious to the situation outside my office. The tall neurologist believed that I was suffering from something other than PD, and insisted that I get a second opinion. I had already met with another neurologist, and I had dropped off a disc of my MRI images and results with him a week or so earlier. I told the tall neurologist that I was waiting to hear back from my second doctor. The tall neurologist left me with a to-do list that included exercise 2 hours per day, yeah right, and make appointment with yet another neurologist who he called and briefed on my situation. I did my best to follow the tall neurologist's instructions. Over the next 6 months, after I was diagnosed, by 2 separate doctors, with PSP, I tried to combat it quietly, on my own, first telling only my chief of staff. But it became clear that I was in over my head as my symptoms, primarily my speech, continued to worsen. Towards the end of my August recess, after long discussions with my family, my doctors and a great deal of self-reflection, I made a difficult decision that I would not run for Congress again. However, I knew that I still had work to do and I was determined to finish my term. On September 18th, I announced publicly my diagnosis and the fact that I would not seek re-election in 2024. The ouster of Speaker McCarthy and the saga surrounding the election of his successor 3 weeks later required us to remain in D.C. a record 10 weeks in a row, through September and October, and caused me to miss almost a dozen physical, speech, and occupational therapy appointments. It took a toll on me physically and emotionally, but with razor-thin margins in the House, every vote counted, and I didn't want to let my colleagues down. Now, I gratefully accept rides across Independence Avenue from my office to the Capitol. I rely on a walker to get around, and amid the bustle and noise of the House floor, it's too difficult for me to be heard or understood. I've started using text-to-speech technology like this for public engagements and committee hearings. Although I have been able to adapt by using technology, let's just say that being robbed of your ability to speak clearly is not exactly an ideal situation for a politician. Rather than training for another Marine Corps marathon like I ran in 2016, I'm working out and doing physical therapy to strengthen my core and improve my balance so I don't fall. While PSP has clearly taken a toll on my body, it has not affected who I am inside. I still crack jokes and bruptures. I still drive my staff crazy by insisting on perfect grammar. And I'm still just as dedicated to doing my job of serving my community in Congress as the very first day I got here. But I'm not sharing all of this about my personal journey because I want to be told how inspiring I am or because I want you to feel sorry for me. But because you and I know how critical it is to raise awareness of PSP and other rare neurological diseases. There are an estimated 30,000 Americans out there facing the same battle I am, and countless more with similar conditions who are going to doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment trying to figure out what could be wrong with them and how to get help. And there are even more family members and loved ones struggling with how to deal with the scary and rapid changes happening to the person that they know and love. We need to know more about these kinds of diseases. Greater resources to better understand conditions like my PSP can mean quicker, more accurate diagnosis. It can mean more time to get on a care regimen that helps alleviate symptoms and slow the progression. And it can help us take action so that fewer people have to face this terrifying journey in the first place. The more we know, the better we can prevent these diseases. I've made brain health a priority in Congress. This week, I'm introducing a bipartisan resolution to recognize May as PSP Awareness Month. I'm proud that we already have more than 6 dozen members signed on with support from both Democrats and Republicans. I've also championed the National Plan to End Parkinson's Act that would help bring greater resources to discovering effective treatments and a cure for Parkinson's and related Parkinsonisms like my PSP. This bipartisan legislation passed the House last year with overwhelming bipartisan support, and I'm hopeful that the Senate will take it up very soon and send it to President Biden's desk. And I deeply appreciate the advocacy of many in this room who have helped bring the energy needed to move this bill along in Congress. And finally, I'm working to better tackle potential causes of these kinds of neurological conditions, because we need to do more to keep our communities healthy by preventing exposure to conditions that are bad for brain health. I'm not the biggest brain health expert, and I never anticipated this being an issue I would work so closely on in Congress. But I am committed to using the platform I have to raise awareness of what PSP and other diseases like it are, and what they are not, and doing all I can to help us better diagnose, treat, and ultimately discover causes and cures. Now, I'm eager to turn it over to the actual experts for an engaging discussion of policies that can improve brain health and step up our fight against these neurological diseases. And yes, the tall neurologist was Dr. Ray Dorsey, who may not always have the perfect social skills, but always has his heart in the right place. His focus and determination inspire me, and I am proud to call him a friend. Thank you once again for the invitation to join you all today. Enjoy your time in DC.